The homeless veteran stood before Judge Caprio with 6 parking tickets in his trembling hands. $900 he didn't have. His choice was simple: pay the fines or keep sleeping in his car. Thomas Harris, 64 years old, Vietnam veteran, looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. His clothes hung loose on his frame. His eyes were hollow, distant, seeing things nobody else could see. He clutched those tickets like they were the last connection to something that mattered. If you believe our veterans deserve better than parking tickets for trying to be with their dying wives, subscribe now. This new channel fights for stories like Thomas's that desperately need to be heard. The clerk read the violations. 6 tickets, 6 weeks, all from the same location: Rhode Island Hospital parking lot. Overnight parking, expired meter, more overnight parking. The pattern was clear. This wasn't someone running errands. This was someone living there. Mr. Harris, Judge Caprio looked at the broken man before him. Can you explain what happened? Thomas's voice cracked before he even started speaking. Your Honor, my wife was dying. He stopped, breathed. You could hear him fighting for control. Terminal cancer, stage 4. They gave her 6 weeks, maybe 8 if we were lucky. The courtroom went quiet. That particular quiet that happens when people realize they're about to hear something that will hurt. We'd been married 38 years. Thomas looked down at his hands. Met her in 1985. I was a mess back then. Vietnam veteran with PTSD. Couldn't hold a job, couldn't sleep, couldn't function. She saved me, Your Honor. She was the only good thing in my entire life. Judge Caprio leaned forward. Where do you live, Mr. Harris? I'm homeless, sir. Have been for 3 years. No shame in his voice, just exhaustion. Lost our apartment when I couldn't work anymore. The PTSD got worse. Nightmares every night. Panic attacks during the day. My disability check is $1,100 a month. That's it. You could feel the weight of those words settle over everyone in that room. $1,100 a month. For a man who'd served his country. For a man who'd given pieces of his soul he'd never get back. But what nobody knew yet was how Thomas had spent those 6 weeks. The choice he'd made. The price he was paying for love. The prosecutor shuffled papers. Your Honor, Mr. Harris received 6 citations over a 6-week period. All overnight parking violations. The hospital lot has clear signage. Maximum stay 3 hours between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. No overnight parking permitted. The defendant chose to ignore these rules repeatedly. I didn't choose anything. Thomas's voice rose, then broke. I slept in my car, in the hospital parking lot, every single night for 42 days. Because my wife was dying on the 4th floor, room 417, and I couldn't leave her alone. The prosecutor stopped talking. The papers in his hand suddenly seemed very unimportant. The parking fee was $20 a day. Thomas continued, each word an effort. $20 I didn't have. My disability check covers my phone, gas for my car, food when I can afford it. Nothing extra, nothing for parking lots. His hands shook. So I'd park at 6 p.m. when they stopped charging, stay all night, leave at 6 a.m. before the next charge started. I thought if I moved the car every few hours, maybe they wouldn't notice. Maybe I could just be near her. Michael Chen, the parking enforcement officer who'd written 4 of the 6 tickets, sat in the back of the courtroom. His face had gone pale. He hadn't known. He'd just seen a car that violated the rules, night after night. Same car, same spot. Write the ticket. Move on. He'd never asked why. Listen carefully to what happened next, because what Judge Caprio discovered would expose a systemic failure that had been happening for years. Mr. Harris, the judge's voice was gentle. Tell me about your wife. Thomas closed his eyes. Linda. Linda Marie Harris. We met at a VA support group. She was volunteering, brought cookies every Tuesday. Terrible cookies. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Burned. Rock hard. But she kept bringing them, kept showing up. Even when I pushed everyone away, when the nightmares were so bad I couldn't be around people, she kept showing up. His voice broke completely. She saved my life, Your Honor. When I wanted to end it, when the memories were too much, when the war wouldn't leave me alone, she held me. 38 years she held me together. And when the cancer came, when they said 6 weeks, I knew. I knew I had to be there, every second, every minute, because she'd given me 38 years of seconds and minutes, and I owed her every single one I had left. You would have heard a pin drop in that courtroom. Not a breath, not a movement, just the sound of a man's heart breaking in real time. The first ticket came on week 2. Thomas pulled them from his pocket, worn from being handled, from being read over and over. May 3rd, $45, overnight parking violation. I got it at 2:17 a.m. I was sleeping in my car, had been up with Linda until midnight. She couldn't sleep. The pain was too bad. When she finally drifted off, I went to the car, tried to rest. His hands clenched. I was so tired, Your Honor. So tired I didn't hear them put the ticket on my windshield. Judge Caprio's jaw tightened. You were sleeping in your car while your wife was dying. And they gave you a parking ticket? Yes, sir. Then another one on May 10th. Same thing. Then May 17th. May 24th. May 31st. June 7th. He laid them out on the table. 6 pieces of paper. 6 violations. $900 total. $900 I don't have. Will never have. The prosecutor cleared his throat. Your Honor, while Mr. Harris's situation is sympathetic, the hospital has these policies for a reason. Other people need parking. Emergency vehicles need access. We can't make exceptions just because what? Judge Caprio's voice cut like a blade. Just because a homeless veteran chose to sleep in his car so he could be near his dying wife. Just because a man with PTSD, a man who served in Vietnam, a man who gets $1,100 a month in disability, couldn't afford $20 a day in parking fees. The prosecutor sat down. Nobody was prepared for what came out of Thomas Harris's mouth next. She died on June 9th. His voice was barely a whisper. Everyone leaned forward to hear. 2 days after the last ticket. I was with her, held her hand. She couldn't talk anymore by then, couldn't really see. But she squeezed my hand, just once, and then she was gone. The silence that followed lasted 17 seconds. Someone in the gallery was openly crying. The nurse told me I should go home, get some rest, come back in the morning to handle the paperwork. Thomas looked up at Judge Caprio, tears streaming down his weathered face. I didn't know how to tell her I didn't have a home, that my home had just died, that everything I had in the world was gone, except a 1997 Toyota Camry with 243,000 miles and an engine that sounds like it's dying too. You could hear his breathing becoming ragged, the PTSD surfacing, the trauma of war mixing with the trauma of loss. I sat in that car for 2 days, in the hospital parking lot, couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't figure out what to do next. On the 3rd day, security knocked on my window, said I had to leave. The car had been there too long. So I drove, just drove, ended up at a parking lot by the river. Been sleeping there since. Judge Caprio stood up. For the 2nd time in his career, he left the bench during active testimony. He walked down, stood in front of Thomas Harris. Mr. Harris, look at me. Thomas lifted his eyes. Empty. Broken. Lost. How old were you when you went to Vietnam? 19, sir. Drafted in 1969. Infantry. 1st Air Cavalry Division. His voice became mechanical, the soldier reciting facts. 12 months in country. Saw action in 47 engagements. Lost half my unit. Came home in 1970. Nobody wanted to see us. Nobody wanted to hear what we'd seen. So we just tried to forget. Did you forget? The judge asked softly. No, sir. Thomas's facade cracked. I still see them, every night. The boys who didn't come home. I still hear the helicopters. Still smell the jungle burning. Linda was the only thing that made it bearable. The only thing that made me want to keep living. His voice rose. And now she's gone. And I'm sitting here with parking tickets. And I don't understand why I survived Vietnam if this is what I survived for. The courtroom erupted in whispers. People crying. The prosecutor stared at his shoes. Michael Chen, the parking officer, had his head in his hands. Judge Caprio's voice rang out. These parking tickets are dismissed, all 6, completely. You don't owe this city 1 cent. Thomas blinked. Your Honor? But I'm not done. The judge turned to his clerk. Get me the Veterans Association on the phone, right now. And the VA Hospital Mental Health Department. And the Rhode Island Housing Authority Veterans Services. The clerk scrambled. The courtroom watched in stunned silence as Judge Caprio made this case about more than parking tickets. Mr. Harris, where are you sleeping tonight? In my car, sir. By the river. No. Judge Caprio's voice was firm. You're not. You served this country. You gave years of your life. You've carried the weight of that service every single day since. And you will not spend one more night sleeping in a car. He took the phone from his clerk, put it on speaker. This is Judge Frank Caprio from Providence Municipal Court. I have a 64-year-old Vietnam veteran in my courtroom, Purple Heart recipient, PTSD, recently lost his wife. He's been homeless for 3 years, sleeping in his car. I need transitional housing today, not next week, not when there's an opening. Today. The voice on the phone hesitated. Your Honor, we have a wait list. I don't care about your wait list. The judge's voice was steel. This man stormed beaches in Vietnam while bureaucrats made lists. He doesn't need another list. He needs a bed, a roof, mental health services, and he needs them now. You could hear typing, frantic whispering in the background. Your Honor, let me check with my supervisor. You do that. I'll hold. Judge Caprio looked at Thomas. You're going to be okay. Do you hear me? You're going to be okay. Thomas couldn't speak, just nodded. Tears flowing freely now. Years of holding it together, finally breaking apart. Your subscription literally determines if these stories reach people who need hope. If Judge Caprio's courage moves you, hit subscribe and notification bell right now. We're building an army for justice. 3 minutes passed. The courtroom waited. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Just watched as a judge fought for a veteran on speakerphone. Your Honor? The voice came back. We have an opening at the Providence Veterans Transitional Housing Facility. It's a studio apartment, fully furnished. He can move in today. We'll also set up intake with the VA Mental Health Crisis Team within 48 hours. And our benefits coordinator will help him apply for increased disability payments, given his wife's recent passing and his housing situation. Judge Caprio closed his eyes. Thank you. Send the address to my clerk. He handed the phone back, turned to Thomas. Do you have a way to get there? I have my car, sir. No, you're not driving. You're in shock. You're grieving. You're exhausted. He pulled out his wallet, counted out bills. This is $160. Get a taxi. Get some food. Get whatever you need for tonight. Tomorrow, the VA will help you with the rest. Thomas stared at the money like it was burning his hands. Your Honor, I can't. Yes, you can. And you will. Judge Caprio's voice softened. Your wife saved your life, Mr. Harris. She gave you 38 years of love and support and stability. She would want you to accept help now. She would want you to be safe, to be okay, to stop punishing yourself for surviving. Thomas broke, completely, sobbed into his hands. All the years of trauma, all the nights of nightmares, all the guilt of coming home when his friends didn't, all the pain of watching Linda die, all of it poured out in that courtroom. Judge Caprio put his hand on the veteran's shoulder, waited, let him cry, didn't rush him, didn't tell him to compose himself, just stood there, a judge and a broken soldier, a moment of humanity in a system that too often forgets to be human. When Thomas finally looked up, Judge Caprio spoke. The prosecutor mentioned rules, policies, procedures. But here's what I know about rules. They're meant to serve justice, not replace it. And there is no justice in punishing a man for loving his wife, for refusing to abandon her, for choosing to sleep in a parking lot rather than leave her to die alone. He turned to face the courtroom. This man served in Vietnam. He came home to a country that didn't want him, to people who spit on soldiers instead of thanking them. He struggled with PTSD for 54 years. 54 years of nightmares and triggers and barely holding on. And the only thing that kept him alive was his wife. His voice rose. And when she was dying, when she had 6 weeks left, when every moment mattered, we charged him for parking. We gave him tickets for sleeping in his car. We treated him like a problem to be solved instead of a hero to be honored. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, I move to dismiss all charges, and I formally apologize to Mr. Harris for the insensitivity of this prosecution. Judge Caprio nodded. Motion granted. Case dismissed. He looked at Michael Chen in the back. Officer Chen, please approach. Michael walked forward, shame written across his face. Officer Chen, did you write 4 of these tickets? Yes, Your Honor. I had no idea. I know you didn't. Judge Caprio's voice was surprisingly gentle. You were doing your job, following the rules. But I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember that every car you ticket, every violation you cite, there's a story. There's a reason. There's a human being making impossible choices. He paused. Next time you see a car parked overnight at a hospital, I want you to ask yourself, why? Is it someone avoiding fees? Or is it someone like Mr. Harris, sleeping in their car because they can't afford to leave? Because they're choosing love over comfort? Because they're already paying a price higher than any ticket could add? Michael nodded. I understand, Your Honor. And Mr. Harris, I am so sorry. If I had known... It's okay. Thomas's voice was hoarse. You didn't know. Nobody knew. I didn't want anyone to know. Didn't want pity. Just wanted to be with my wife. Judge Caprio returned to his bench. This court is adjourned. Mr. Harris, my clerk will give you all the information you need. The address, the contact names, everything. You go there today. You rest. You grieve. You start healing. And you remember that your wife's last gift to you was showing you how to accept love. Now, accept help. Let people care for you the way you cared for her. The courtroom erupted in applause, people standing. Thomas sat there, overwhelmed, clutching the money and the papers, and trying to understand that something had just changed. 6 weeks later, Thomas Harris sat in a small studio apartment in the Providence Veterans Transitional Housing Facility, his first real home in 3 years. There was a bed, a small kitchen, a bathroom with a working shower, a window that overlooked a small garden. He'd started seeing a therapist twice a week. VA mental health. Someone who specialized in PTSD. Someone who understood Vietnam, who understood survivors' guilt, who understood what it meant to carry ghosts for 54 years. His disability payments had increased. With Linda gone, with his housing documented, With his mental health crisis properly evaluated, he now received $1,800 a month. Enough to eat, enough to save, enough to start thinking about what came next. He joined a support group, other Vietnam veterans, other men who'd seen things nobody should see, who'd come home broken, who'd spent decades trying to understand why they survived when others didn't. They met every Tuesday night, in the same community center where he'd met Linda 40 years ago. He brought cookies now. Terrible cookies. Burned and rock hard. But he kept bringing them, kept showing up. The way she'd taught him. 3 months later, Judge Caprio received a letter. Handwritten. 3 pages. From Thomas Harris. Your Honor, I don't have the words to thank you for what you did. You saved my life that day. I was ready to give up, ready to join Linda however I could. The tickets were just one more thing in a mountain of impossible things. One more way the universe was telling me I didn't belong here anymore. But you saw me. Not the homeless guy with parking tickets. Not the broken veteran who couldn't hold it together. You saw me. You saw Linda. You saw 38 years of love and 6 weeks of devotion, and you said, this matters. He matters. I have a home now. I'm getting help. The nightmares are still there, but they're not as bad. I'm eating regular meals. I'm starting to sleep at night instead of just during the day. I'm remembering what it feels like to be a person instead of just a collection of problems. Linda would have liked you. She always said the world needs more people who see people, who care about the stories behind the rules. You would have liked her too. She made terrible cookies, but she made them with so much love that it didn't matter they tasted like cardboard. I'm volunteering now at the VA hospital, talking to other veterans who are going through hell, who are alone, who are scared, who are trying to be strong for someone they love. I tell them about you, about what happened in that courtroom, about how one person who cares can change everything. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for fighting for me. Thank you for reminding me that I matter, that my service mattered, that Linda's love mattered, that our story mattered. I'm going to be okay. You were right about that. It's going to take time, maybe a lot of time, but I'm going to be okay. Because of you. With deepest gratitude, Thomas Harris. Judge Caprio kept that letter in his desk, took it out sometimes when cases felt overwhelming, when the rules seemed more important than the people, when the system felt too big to fight. He'd read it and remember why he became a judge, why he fought for compassion, why he believed that justice without mercy is just cruelty with a gavel. You've just heard how one judge changed everything for one homeless veteran. But Thomas Harris's case changed policies that affected 200 veterans in Rhode Island, 200 families who no longer face parking citations for being with dying loved ones, 200 stories of dignity restored. Subscribe to spread this vision of justice. Like this video if you felt something. Comment your city below. Let's show the world we demand compassion in our courts. Share this with someone who's lost faith in the system. The Rhode Island hospital revised their parking policies within 2 months. Any family member with a patient in ICU or hospice care could register their vehicle. Free parking for the duration of the patient's stay. No questions asked. No fees. Just compassion. The VA hospital system in Rhode Island implemented a similar policy. Veterans visiting for medical care, especially terminal care, could park free. Just show ID, just prove service. That's it. And parking enforcement officers across Providence received new training. How to recognize when someone is living in their car. How to identify a vehicle that's there because of hardship, not convenience. How to approach with compassion instead of citations. How to connect people with resources instead of just writing tickets. Thomas Harris lived in that transitional housing for 8 months. Then he moved into his own apartment, A one-bedroom, small but his. First place he'd signed a lease on in 4 years. He hung a picture of Linda on the wall, the two of them on their wedding day. Young, smiling, full of hope. He still drives the 1997 Toyota Camry, 260,000 miles now. Engine still sounds like it's dying, but it runs. It got him through the hardest 6 weeks of his life. Got him to Linda's bedside every day. Got him to that courtroom. Got him to his new apartment. He'll drive it until it physically can't drive anymore. It's more than a car now. It's a survivor. Just like him. Imagine if every courtroom operated this way. Imagine if every judge saw the person, not just the violation. Saw the story, not just the statute. Saw the humanity in impossible situations. Because here's the truth nobody talks about. Our systems are built to process people, not help them. Built to enforce rules, not consider context. Built to punish violations, not understand why those violations happened. Thomas Harris violated parking rules. That's a fact. He parked overnight. He exceeded time limits. He technically broke the law. But the law was never meant to punish love, was never meant to criminalize devotion, was never meant to charge fees for staying with your dying wife. Think about that. Really think about it. A man served in Vietnam, saw his friends die, came home with PTSD that would haunt him for 5 decades, found love, found someone who saved him, spent 38 years building a life with her, and when she was dying, when all he wanted was to be near her, the system charged him $900 for sleeping in his car. That's not justice. That's not law. That's cruelty. Pure and simple. Cruelty disguised as policy. Suffering disguised as rules. Heartlessness disguised as procedure. But Judge Frank Caprio saw through the disguise, saw the man, saw the love, saw the impossible choice, and he said, "No more. No more punishing people for being human. No more charging fees for compassion. No more treating veterans like problems instead of heroes. If you believe in this kind of justice, we need you. Subscribe now. Share this story. Comment below with your own experiences fighting unfair systems. Let's build something bigger than ourselves. Because somewhere right now, another veteran is sleeping in their car. Another spouse is choosing between parking fees and staying with their dying partner. Another family is drowning in citations for trying to be together in crisis. And they need to know that people like Judge Caprio exist. That justice still lives. That their story matters. That someone will fight for them. Thomas Harris's story mattered. It changed laws, changed policies, changed how 200 veterans and their families are treated. And it started with one moment. One judge willing to see past the tickets to the tragedy, past the violations to the love, past the rules to the reason. Your engagement with this video, your subscription, your shares, they matter. They determine whose stories get told, whose injustices get exposed, whose lives get changed. Be part of this movement. Subscribe, like, comment, share. Not for the algorithm, for Thomas Harris. For every veteran who comes home broken and gets treated like they're disposable. For every spouse watching someone they love die and getting punished for refusing to leave them alone. This is more than a YouTube channel. This is a movement for justice, for dignity, for remembering that laws serve people, not the other way around. For honoring the veterans who gave everything and asking for nothing in return. And it starts with you. Right now. This moment. Hit that subscribe button. Ring that notification bell. Let's make sure stories like Thomas Harris's don't just inspire us. Let's make sure they change us. Change our systems. Change how we treat veterans. Change what justice means. Because that's what Judge Caprio did. He didn't just dismiss parking tickets. He restored dignity. He honored service. He showed Thomas Harris that his life mattered, that Linda's love mattered, that 38 years of devotion meant something more than $900 in fees. Welcome to the movement. Subscribe now. Thomas Harris's story is just the beginning. There are thousands more. Thousands of veterans. Thousands of families. Thousands of impossible situations where the system failed and people like Judge Caprio need to step up. Let's make sure they do. Let's make sure every story gets told. Every injustice gets exposed. Every veteran gets honored. Every act of love gets protected instead of punished. This is how we change the world. One courtroom at a time. One judge at a time. One story at a time. Starting with Thomas Harris. Starting with Judge Frank Caprio. Starting with you.